There are discoveries that rewrite everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. Objects that shouldn't exist. Artifacts so bizarre that archaeologists spent decades arguing about whether they were real or elaborate hoaxes. And the most unsettling part, we still can't explain most of them. In 1900, divers found a 2000-year-old mechanical computer at the bottom of the Mediterranean. The Antikythera mechanism had 37 bronze gears that calculated astronomical positions with precision that wouldn't be matched for 1,400 years. It predicted eclipses. It tracked the Olympic Games. Ancient Greeks weren't supposed to have this technology, but they did. And we have no idea how they built it or what else they created that's still buried. In 1991, a hiker in the Alps found a frozen body from 3,300 BC. He had 61 tattoos placed precisely on acupuncture points. He wore waterproof shoes more sophisticated than anything Europe would produce for 5,000 years. And he was murdered, shot in the back with an arrow, then finished off with a blow to the head. Someone killed him with such precision that scientists suspect he was assassinated by a professional. In 2012, archaeologists in Mexico found a 1,400-year-old Mayan tomb with a skeleton whose skull had been deliberately elongated and whose teeth were inlaid with jade and pyrite. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was the elaborate dental work showed zero signs of infection despite massive modifications. But here's what should terrify anyone who thinks we understand ancient history. These aren't anomalies. They're not isolated mysteries. Archaeologists keep finding things that contradict the neat timeline we teach in schools. Advanced technology appearing thousands of years too early. Surgical precision from civilizations that supposedly use stone tools. Evidence of global trade networks when humans were supposed to be isolated in small tribes. Every decade brings new discoveries that make the previous decade's textbooks obsolete. This is the strangest things archaeologists have found, why each discovery shatters our assumptions about ancient capabilities, and why the most disturbing conclusion might be that our ancestors were far more advanced than we've given them credit for, and then something happened that made them lose it all. 1. The Baghdad Battery. 2. 000-year-old electroplating. In 1938, German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig found clay jars in Iraq dating to 200 BC. Each jar contained a copper cylinder with an iron rod suspended inside. When filled with acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, they generate 1.1 volts of electricity. They're batteries. 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta invented the battery in 1800. The Baghdad Battery isn't controversial because it exists. Museums have them. It's controversial because we can't figure out what ancient Persians used them for. The obvious answer is electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of gold or silver. And there's evidence they did exactly that. Ancient artifacts from the region show electroplating consistent with using these batteries. But here's the problem. Electroplating requires understanding of electrical current, chemical reactions, and metallurgy that wasn't supposed to exist for 2,000 years. The Baghdad Battery suggests ancient Persians had working knowledge of electricity, not theoretical, practical. They were using it. And if they had batteries, what else did they have? Electrical lighting? Communication systems? Technologies that didn't survive because they were made from materials that decompose. The Baghdad Battery might be the only surviving artifact from a sophisticated electrical civilization that existed before the Dark Ages erased everything. 2. The Piri Reis Map. Antarctica before ice. In 1929, scholars found a 1513 map created by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis. The map shows the coastline of Antarctica with accurate detail of mountains and rivers that are currently buried under a mile of ice. Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820, and the ice-free coastline depicted on the map hasn't been visible for 6,000 years. Piri Reis claimed he compiled his map from much older source maps, some dating to the time of Alexander the Great. But that means someone mapped Antarctica's coastline before it was covered in ice. Someone had the technology to explore Antarctica, accurately map it, and preserve that information for thousands of years. But here's what makes it impossible to dismiss. Modern analysis using ground-penetrating radar confirms the map's accuracy. The mountains shown on the map exist under the ice, exactly where the map shows them. This isn't lucky guessing. This is precise geographic knowledge of a continent that's been frozen for 6,000 years. The implications are staggering. Either an advanced civilization existed before 4000 BC with ocean-going vessels and mapping technology, or Piri Reis had access to maps created by someone we don't know about. Either option rewrites history, and neither option is acknowledged by mainstream archaeology. 3. The Voynich Manuscript. The book no one can read, a 240-page illustrated book written in an unknown language using an unknown writing system. Carbon dating places it in the early 1400s. It contains detailed illustrations of plants that don't exist, astronomical diagrams that don't match any known system, and what appears to be pharmaceutical or biological information. Cryptographers, linguists, and AI have all tried to decode it. All have failed. The Voynich manuscript isn't random gibberish. Statistical analysis shows it has linguistic structure consistent with natural language. It has grammar, syntax, and patterns, but the language doesn't match anything on Earth. Some of the plant illustrations match no known species. The astronomical diagrams don't correspond to medieval understanding of the cosmos. But here's the terrifying possibility. What if it's not a hoax? What if it's a genuine record of knowledge from a civilization we don't know about? The illustrations suggest medical and botanical knowledge. The astronomical diagrams suggest cosmological understanding. If we could decode it, Japanese purple, and every other code system in history, the Voynich manuscript has resisted analysis for 600 years. Either it's the most elaborate hoax ever created, or it represents knowledge so foreign to our understanding that we literally don't have the context to interpret it. 4. The Sacsayhuaman walls. Precision stone cutting. We can't replicate massive stone walls in Peru, built by the Inca around 1100 AD. Individual stones weigh up to 200 tons. They're cut and fitted with such precision that you can't slide a piece of paper between them. No mortar. The stones are irregular polygons, each uniquely shaped to fit perfectly with its neighbors. Some stones have 12 angles, fitted seamlessly to stones with different angles. Modern engineers cannot replicate this construction. We can cut and move 200-ton stones using advanced machinery. But we cannot cut them to fit together with sub-millimeter precision without measuring tools, without metal cutting implements, and without the ability to test fit and adjust. But here's what's impossible to explain. Some stones show evidence of melting or vitrification. The stone's surface turned to glass. This requires temperatures exceeding 1,100 degrees Celsius. You can't achieve that with fires. Some researchers suggest the Inca had technology capable of softening stone, shaping it like clay, then allowing it to re-harden. But that technology doesn't exist in our modern world. And the walls have survived hundreds of earthquakes that destroyed everything around them. Modern buildings in Peru collapse during earthquakes. The Sacsayhuaman walls don't even shift. The ancient construction technique, whatever it was, is superior to modern seismic engineering. 5. The Drapa stones, alien contact, or ancient hoax. Archaeologist Chi Porte found 716 stone discs in caves in the Baal and Kara-Ula mountains in China. The discs are 12 inches in diameter with a hole in the center, covered in tiny hieroglyphs spiraling from center to edge. They're 12,000 years old. In 1962, a Chinese professor claimed to translate them. They allegedly describe a spacecraft crash, and the survivors the Drapa people trying to survive on Earth. Most archaeologists dismiss the Drapa stones as a hoax. But the stones exist. Laboratories analyzed them and found unusual properties. The discs contain high concentrations of cobalt and other metals, and they produce measurable electrical charges. No one has explained why 12,000-year-old stone discs would be manufactured to contain metals and generate electrical fields. But here's what can't be dismissed. The caves contained skeletons with unusual characteristics: extremely short stature, around 4 feet tall, with disproportionately large skulls. The Chinese government allegedly classified research on the stones and the cave system. Whether the translation is accurate or not, something strange happened in those mountains 12,000 years ago. Someone created hundreds of intricate stone discs, buried them in caves with unusual skeletons, and left behind legends of visitors from the sky. That's not normal archaeology. That's something we don't have an explanation for. 6. The Koso artifact. Spark plug from 500,000 years ago. Rock collectors found a geode in California. When they cut it open, it contained what appeared to be a modern spark plug: ceramic insulator, metal core, corroded spring. X-rays confirmed mechanical construction, but the rock formation encasing it was 500,000 years old. Humans didn't exist 500,000 years ago in any form capable of manufacturing precision mechanical components. Spark plugs were invented in 1902. The Koso artifact shouldn't exist. But it does. But here's the explanation that doesn't help. Skeptics claim it's a 1920s spark plug that got encased in rapidly forming concretion, not genuine rock. But analysis of the encasing material suggests formation over thousands of years, not decades. And even if it's only a few thousand years old, that's still thousands of years before humans invented spark plugs. The artifact was allegedly lost or destroyed in the 1960s, conveniently preventing further analysis. Only photographs and X-rays remain. But those photographs show something that looks exactly like a mechanical component inside what appears to be ancient stone. 7. The Ubaid lizard people, ancient reptilian figurines in southern Iraq. Archaeologists found dozens of 7,000-year-old figurines from the Ubaid culture. The figurines depict humanoid figures with elongated lizard-like heads, almond-shaped eyes, and reptilian features. They're shown in various poses, holding babies, in positions of authority, performing rituals. They're clearly important figures in Ubaid culture. These aren't monsters or demons. The figurines are crafted with the same care and detail as human figurines from the same culture. They're wearing elaborate headdresses and jewelry. They're holding human babies. They appear to be depicting an actual race or species that the Ubaid people interacted with. Ancient art typically depicts things people saw: gods, animals, humans, events. The level of detail and consistency across hundreds of figurines suggests these lizard people were part of Ubaid reality, not fantasy. And the figurines aren't isolated. Similar depictions of reptilian or serpent humanoids appear in ancient cultures worldwide. Aztec, Egyptian, Hindu, Chinese. Different continents, different time periods, same imagery. Either humanity independently invented the exact same mythological creature dozens of times, or these depictions are based on something real that ancient peoples encountered. Each jar is carved from solid stone, weighs up to 30 tons, and required sophisticated tools to create. They're 2,000 to 3,000 years old. Archaeologists have found thousands of them across 90-plus sites. No one knows what they were for. Creating these jars required enormous effort. Quarrying multi-ton stones, transporting them, hollowing them out to precise specifications. This represents thousands of hours of labor using Stone Age technology. Ancient peoples didn't waste effort like that. Everything they built served a purpose: shelter, food storage, defense, ritual. But the jars don't fit any category. But here's what's strange. The jars show no evidence of use, no residue inside, no signs of food storage, wine fermentation, or ritual sacrifice. They're just there. Massive stone vessels that required incredible effort to create, serving no apparent function. Some researchers suggest they were burial urns, but most contain no remains. Others suggest they were fermentation vessels, but chemical analysis finds no evidence. Local legends say they were created by giants to brew rice wine for a celebration. That's not helpful. But it raises the question, why would ancient peoples invest enormous resources creating thousands of massive stone jars unless they served a critical purpose? And if they served a critical purpose, why can't we figure out what it was? 9. The Longyou Caves, 2,000-year-old underground megastructure. A Chinese villager drained a pond and found a staircase leading underground. It opened into a massive artificial cave, 30,000 square meters, carved 30 meters into solid rock, with pillars, rooms, and precise angles. 24 total, all connected, all carved with precision that would challenge modern equipment. They date to at least 2,000 years ago. No records exist of their construction. Removing 1 million cubic meters of solid stone creates a problem. Where did it go? That much stone can't disappear. It would create a mountain of debris, but there's no evidence of debris anywhere near the caves. The stone was removed and transported somewhere, leaving no trace. But here's the engineering impossibility. The caves maintain precise angles and parallel walls across thousands of square meters. Modern tunnel boring requires laser guidance and computer control to maintain accuracy. The Longyou Caves maintain that accuracy while being carved by hand, in the dark, with bronze or stone tools. The pillars are spaced regularly to support the ceiling structure. This requires understanding of load distribution and structural engineering, and there are no records. Nothing in Chinese historical texts mentions massive underground construction projects in that region. How do you mobilize the labor force needed to carve 24 enormous caves, remove millions of tons of stone, and leave no historical record? Either the records were destroyed, or the construction happened so long ago that civilizations rose and fell before anyone wrote it down. 10. The Denisovan bracelet, 70,000-year-old jewelry requiring modern tools in Siberia's Denisova cave. Archaeologists found a polished green stone bracelet dated to 70,000 years ago. The bracelet has a precisely drilled hole and was polished to a mirror finish. Analysis shows the drilling required a high-speed rotary tool, minimum 10,000 revolutions per minute. The polishing required leather and diamond paste or similar abrasive compounds. These tools didn't exist 70,000 years ago. We were using stone tools and living in caves. The technology to drill precise holes requiring 10,000 revolutions per minute rotation didn't exist. Diamond paste polishing compounds didn't exist, but someone created a piece of jewelry requiring both technologies 70,000 years ago in Siberia. But here's what breaks the timeline. The bracelet was found with Denisovan remains, an extinct human species we barely know about. Denisovans were supposedly primitive compared to Homo sapiens, but they're the ones who created advanced jewelry requiring technology that wouldn't be invented for another 69,000 years. And the bracelet is beautiful. This wasn't crude trial and error. This was skilled craftsmanship by someone who knew exactly what they were doing, which means they had training, tradition, and accumulated knowledge, which means Denisovan civilization was far more sophisticated than we've acknowledged. Why these discoveries matter and why they're often ignored. Every artifact on this list challenges the narrative of linear human progress. Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Industrial Age, a steady climb from savagery to civilization. But these artifacts suggest a different story. Advanced civilizations existing and then disappearing. Technological sophistication appearing, then vanishing, then reappearing thousands of years later. Knowledge that shouldn't exist according to our timeline, but exists anyway. The Baghdad battery proves ancient peoples had electricity. But that fact is relegated to controversial status because accepting it means rewriting electrical engineering history. The Piri-Reis map proves someone mapped Antarctica before ice covered it. But that fact is dismissed because accepting it means acknowledging advanced civilization existed 6,000 plus years ago. The Antikythera mechanism proves ancient Greeks built computers, but we call it an anomaly because accepting it means admitting we've underestimated ancient technological capability. The pattern is clear. Discoveries that fit the narrative get celebrated and publicized. Discoveries that contradict the narrative get dismissed as hoaxes, explained away with tortured logic, or quietly ignored. The Baghdad battery is real, verified, and sitting in museums, but most people have never heard of it. But here's the most disturbing implication. If these civilizations had advanced technology and then lost it, what caused the collapse? What could destroy sophisticated civilizations so thoroughly that only scattered artifacts survive? Natural disaster? War? Something else? And if it happened before, could it happen again? We assume our technological civilization is permanent, but the ancients probably assumed the same thing. The technology vanished, the knowledge was lost, and humanity spent thousands of years trying to rediscover what had been forgotten. These artifacts aren't just strange, they're warnings. They prove that advanced civilizations can exist and then disappear, leaving only mysterious objects that future archaeologists can't explain. They prove that humans have risen to sophistication before, then fallen back to primitive conditions. The strangest thing archaeologists have found isn't any single artifact. It's the pattern. Advanced technology appearing too early, sophisticated knowledge existing when it shouldn't, precision engineering from peoples who supposedly used stone tools, global connections when civilizations were supposedly isolated. Every decade brings new discoveries that don't fit, and instead of rewriting the timeline to match the evidence, we call the evidence anomalous and keep the timeline. Maybe the ancients weren't primitive. Maybe they were advanced, sophisticated, and technological. Maybe they built things we can't replicate and understood things we've forgotten. Maybe they reached heights of civilization we haven't achieved yet. And maybe, thousands of years from now, future archaeologists will find our smartphones, our computers, our machines, and call them anomalous artifacts that don't fit their timeline of human progress. Because the cycle continues. Civilizations rise, knowledge accumulates, technology advances. Then something happens. The civilization falls, the knowledge is lost, and future generations don't believe their ancestors were capable of what the artifacts prove they achieved. That's the strangest thing archaeologists have found. Evidence that we've been here before, done this before, built amazing things before, and lost it all. And we're arrogant enough to think it couldn't happen again.